Jack Wallace. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm so good. This has been so long in the making getting you on. I knew when I worked with you for my English accent for an audition, I was like, I gotta have Jack on the podcast. And I'm so happy you said yes.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for today.
Yeah. Well, let's just be honest. Let's just start with a rapid fire question that you know nothing about. I'm just going to ask, and I'm going to put you on the spot. How amazing was I with my English accent?
You can't
pause. You can't pause.
I was savoring the memory because it's emblazoned there. It was great. It was amazing.
It's good.
High ahead for any accent work.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I remember that when I turned that in, we worked on it and I turned it in to my reps, that I was so hurt because my reps didn't write back and say anything about the accent. I was like, I worked so hard on it. It was like, 48, 72 hours we worked on it. And I was like, I turned it in and they said nothing about it. And I wrote them and I was like, does anybody want to say anything about my, English accent? They're like, oh, we just thought it was great. There was no problem at all. And I was like,
please give me that validation. Thank you.
I know, right? That's true. I did. I needed that. There's so many things that I feel confident in, right? That I do, our acting. And I don't feel confident in being a dad. I was always going to say that. But I do not feel as confident in accents, as I could. So I have a question. You work with actors.
Correct.
Why actors? Why us? When you can go, I don't know, but why us?
I've always just loved everything around the acting process, really. And I discovered in my undergrad that on stage as an actor was probably not the place for me. I enjoyed being in the spotlight. I didn't mind saying things, but then I was like, oh, when you do it, you're actually telling a story with these words. You're not just reciting the words that you've been given. That's interesting. That sounds like a lot of work to do that. But I love being in the process of creating art and stories, whether it be for film, TV, or even theater. I just love that whole process of making it. We've got to get it done by this day, and it's not anywhere near there. Let's just do what we can, and then the magic happens. I love it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because on the other end of that, I'm always like, I don't want anything to do with accents, right? And I like, again, I guess it's just a confidence thing, or it just scares me. Just scares me. What's the difference between a dialect and an accent? Is that the same thing? I'm using that word interchangeably, and I just want to make sure before we get in there and somebody DMs me, they're like, no, that's not right.
A lot of people use them interchangeably, and it depends on what kind of sphere you work in as well and what country you're in. I think in the UK, there's a bit more of a differentiation. We tend to think of accents as in the sounds that you make, and dialect that includes all of the words within that you might use that are special to your region. In America, I've seen it used literally interchangeably. When you get into being like a special phonetics buff, then in the linguist sphere, I think they have very clear distinctions there. It just depends where you are. But for today, we're going to use them interchangeably and no one DM him.
Okay. Right. Well, yeah, I did I think I told you this. I did a African film where I had to have a Nigerian region accent. And I was so scared. I had to work with I should have hired somebody really in depth, but I did what we call YouTube University. And and I just think about like, wow, that was probably not the best thing to do.
Well, I have a question for you about your time at that university. Did you try and find one person that you were emulating? Did you try and pull things with different people? What was your approach with this? Because it can be a useful tool, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious.
I did not do one because that sounds like a better idea now that I'm thinking about it, right? I was just trying to get what I thought that accent or that dialect was, right? And, it's a funny thing that happens with me that might be really racist right now that I think about is like when I'm around different dialects, sometimes I just start talking like them and I don't mean to do it. I just, my ear picks up on it and then I start doing it and it feels like I'm mimicking them, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like if I'm around somebody English, all of a sudden I'm like, hello, or so, I don't know, but.
I think it's fine provided that, you're socially fine with those people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily walk up to strangers and do it, but
Yeah, I know. No. Hello, Governor. And that's
slight caveat there. But yeah.
No, so what were you thinking that if I did go to YouTube University and I went with one person, that would be better? Or would you you have like online programs and stuff like that? Like, would you just go with one person and figure, that's the way to go?
A lot of our work is actually the research and the prep before the session that we have with someone or with the role that we're working on in a movie. And so the initial stage is look for as much as, especially if you're not familiar with the accent, find as much variety of content as you can and try and see if you can figure out if there's any commonality between them. Like all of these make an sound there. That's one gonna happen. Whatever I do, it's gonna be there. And then try and find variety within it. And then eventually pick somebody that you're like, okay, this person, they seem to have all the stuff that I want. I feel a connection to them. This is the person I'm going to model my accent from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But obviously with auditions, you have a much shorter time to do that. So you might skip a couple of the stages if it's just for an audition, just to get the result that you're looking for. But yeah, I would recommend, if you haven't had formal training in kind of phonetics and linguistics and things to be able to figure out what is happening in all the places, go and find one person to try it.
Yeah. So formal training, that would be like if you did it in grad school, or if you learn the phonetic alphabet or all that, is that what you mean by that?
Kind of. There are a range of qualities of training. In the UK, there are a few master's programs that you can do, which is one of the ones I did. Here in America, there are a couple of courses. When I talk about formal training, that you can really understand why these things are happening and how it relates to your own mouth, so that you can do it. Because it's all very well someone be like, this shape is an sound. When you see the shape, make an if you can't actually feel the difference for yourself, then that's not really going to help. Yeah. So I have another. You're registered, it says here, right, on your website. Like you're registered, and I'm like, there's a secret society of like registered dialect. Yes, I'm part of the dialectcoaches.com registered dialect. So basically there's a website, dialectcoaches.com, and they vet people that say they're dialect coaches. And they actually watch you teach a session to be like, oh, yes, I've seen the work. I actually do know what they're talking about. They're not just saying, I can do accents.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of level of protection or accreditation.
Do you? It seems like you might get actors coming to you like in full panic mode, right? Like
most of the time.
Most of the time, right? We get this and we're like, please help me speak in an English accent. Can I have a little Irish twang to it, or Boston, or like, I imagine that's probably not the best way to do it, right? I mean, it's trial under fire. Like you just got to get it in 24 hours, but I don't know what's the best way to do this. Like, would you do it for like now, like I just do 4 weeks of it or 8 weeks of it, or just keep coming in and checking in? Like, what's the best way to learn another accent or dialect?
Well, there are certain ones that kind of, you might fit your casting. For example, if you're always getting called in for a role and every single time they're like, it should have this accent, it should have this accent, maybe that is a sign that, yes, outside of auditioning, go in and learn that. But then you'll also get sides that say, this person is from Hungary. And it's not one that you would necessarily be learning just for fun. And so the only option then is just to do a session beforehand. And we can get you through the audition pretty easily. Like I get a lot of people that have never done accents at all before that have an audition due the next day. I have people that have kind of done some accents, never this accent. And they're always surprised at how much you can actually get done in one session.
Yeah. I felt extremely comfortable, working with you on, we had at least 5 to 7 pages of dialogue. It was a couple of scenes and, you went through it and broke down, I think, some really cool best practices for the English dialect. And if I remember, something to the effect of, I say something to the effect because it's gone now, right? It literally was there for that, but it was like the R's, like for example, you were saying like the R sound was it almost non-existent, right? Never. I don't know. I can't. It was something like that. Help me out here.
No, but this is great. This is what you still retain all these months later, which is great. So yes, there are kind of different categories of accents we can talk about. And a very fancy word for our listeners is rhoticity. And basically an accent can have rhoticity or not. And so an American accent is what we call a rhotic accent. And received pronunciation English accent is non-rhotic. So in America, a lot of general American accents, not all of them, whenever you see the letter R, you make an ish sound in the word because it's there. Whereas in this non-rhotic accent, you only do that if there's a vowel sound right after it. So the end of never, there is no other sound happening. So never, so rather never, there's an on the end.
So it's like never. I remember this. I feel like sometimes when I start to do accents, they all come out either like low-key Caribbean and not, British. And so I'm sweating over here just in case you like, I'm going to ask you at the end of this podcast, we're going to like definitely maybe do a sentence, a line, but like the thought of the fear of this is really intense for me. And who knew there was so much emotion behind language is what I want to say. Do you see that in your work?
Absolutely, yes. It's kind of almost impossible to separate identity from accent because it's really a mixture of all of the social circles that you've been a part of or not been a part of as well. People consciously choose their accents to try and not sound like certain people, or they pick up features without even realizing because they want to emulate other people. And so, yeah, it's perfectly normal to have emotion tied up with that.
Yeah. Do you find that this is such a loaded question? Do you find that, how do I say this without offending anyone, that I don't know, here's where I'm getting at. I was going to say that Americans have a harder time with the dialects and the accents because sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm watching the Australian actors or the English actors come over, it seems like it's nothing. It seems like, I'm sure we don't see the work that's going into it, but it seems so effortless. And then you have me over here or possible inserting the other actor. We're like, I can't do it. How am I supposed to, or it feels very, so I wonder if it's just a training thing, or do you see any like blocks in that or universal blocks?
I don't think there are any universal blocks necessarily. I think it's also to do with the percentages that you see as well, because there are a lot of people that come to America to work in the film and television industry, and particularly in kind of Australia and New Zealand. That is part of their training to sound like Americans, so they can just come in here straight away and work as whatever character they need to be, rather than, oh, here's someone from Australia in this show. They could just audition for all the shows. Whereas you see a lot less Americans traveling to Australia to work in the film industry. So there's less stakes there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I was wondering that. I guess I just need to work on the confidence of it, because I've been told for a while you could do an English accent, or I don't even want to do a Boston accent, right? I don't even want to, any other region to feel like I'm like, whenever we do accents, we go to the most extreme. We're like, yo, I'm from New York. And we go to the extremes instead of, I know, right? Everybody in New York listening, sorry. That was pretty awful on that one.
Right.
That was great. I really think that, I can't be the only actor out there that gets a little skittish around accents, So I think this podcast for me is very important because how do we get comfortable before an audition? Because we're already learning words, right? The script, we're already learning the character, we're already learning the world. And to layer on an accent, can be a little bit daunting for it. So I have the way I've worked with accents, and I don't know if this is the way you recommend, I had to learn the entire script first and then go back and put the accent on top of it. So I kind of knew what I was saying and then we changed it. Is that what's the best practice there for, doing that?
I mean, my recommendation would be the opposite, but that's okay.
No, that's cool. That's good. No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Yeah. Like I have no clue on it.
The reason I say that is because every actor's process is different. But if you're having to learn a script and then you're changing what you're doing for all of the words, you're having to unlearn what you've just learned to relearn it in this new way. And so you're much more likely to slip into your original way of learning it later on.
Yeah. So Jack, basically you came on my podcast and told me I was wrong, right?
Immediately. Yes.
No, it makes sense. I again, that might be a control thing that I have. Like I got to have some part of this make sense to me. So I would do it that way. But your way, go ahead.
I think rather than saying you have to do it this way, my recommendation is try and get the dialect work in as early as possible. Absolutely read the script, find out what's going on. But I would recommend not trying to memorize lines before having done any dialect work.
Got it. So I was wrong, but no, I get it. Like I said, I was just trying to figure out how to get into this character, right? And yeah, I guess I have a little bit of a photographic mind anyway, so I can kind of see that stuff and it doesn't take too long to learn, but that might account for why it was a little bit harder for me to go back and change those words, right? Because I'm trying to do it in my head the other way. I'm conjugating, as they would say in Spanish when I was learning that language, instead of like, this is the way I learned it. It sounds like a step has been cut out of that for that.
And also one of the things, I'm not sure if you remember, but one of the misnomers about accents is that you have to change every single word in order to sound like you're from somewhere else, whereas there's a lot of overlap between dialects of sounds. So if you've learned one line, maybe you're only changing the way you say one word in it. So you're thinking, this is what I learned, this will change, this is what I learned. And so then those changes can stick out a bit more as well.
I don't remember that, actually, you saying that, but that is really good because in my mind, if somebody is, Southern, I do a Southern accent and all of a sudden I think I just start talking like this and changing a little bit, and I think it all has to be changed or all has to have a little twang on it or something. But I don't think about it as there's just a couple words that needs to be changed because it sounds so dramatic to my ear. Like your accent, I believe British and Irish, we were saying, right? Or you have mother?
Well, my mom's from Northern Ireland. I'm from the middle of England, and so it's where the accent shifts in the country.
So can anybody come to you and you know what dialect to how to speak it, how to shift it, right? So if I came to you and said, can we do this Western African dialect, would you know, or are there more dialects that are your sweet spot?
I get asked for certain dialects more often than others just because of how prevalent they are in auditions. I get asked for a lot of English accents, usually 3 different ones from England come up a lot, and then like 3 or 4 American ones, and then we get a little bit more widespread from there. But because I learned how to reverse engineer accents, essentially, as long as I can find enough samples of it, then I can then figure out what's supposed to go where for the coaching session.
That's so interesting. I was just thinking also that there's different stuff in different regions, like you were just saying. So like, I say pop a lot. I say, because I was like, oh, can I get a pop or something? And everybody usually makes fun of me, but that comes from my growing up or my parents in Chicago, right? And so, but in Florida, where I did most of my growing up, they say soda. And so it's like when you're saying those little shifts, does that have anything to do with the dialect or no?
That's more what we would consider like dialect in the UK, but it can obviously affect it. But not much of that is within my remit because that's more to do with the writing of something. But I can advise, or if there's a word in there that's like super not meant to be there, then sometimes I'll say something like, maybe we can try this.
Yeah. So I know this question here, but I want to see, I want everybody else to do. How does a session go with you? Like I come in and I have my sides, and how does walk me through a session with you? Like it's like Jack, help me.
That is the email I get all the time. Yes, indeed.
That was my email.
So yeah, I would get you to send me the sides in advance so I can take a look through, see if there's any things that I need to look up, because sometimes they throw in some random vocabulary or things. So I need to double check my sources so that when we're together, we can be ready to go. Or if it's an established show with specific character names, sometimes I have to check the pronunciation of those. And then what I always do, because I'm mean-spirited, is get you to just have a go at your best version of whatever it is immediately. And everyone's like, what? No, in the accent? No. And I say yes. And then we go in and work from there. Also, it gives me a chance to hear what you already know, or there might be a certain sound that you're making in the wrong place, but we do need it somewhere else. So I'm like, we're going to steal that and put it in here instead. And then we go through the sides. I annotate it as we go. It's usually on Zoom, and so I'm doing it on a PDF. And then I send you the annotated one. I send you the recording of the session, and you're on your way to go do your tape.
Yeah, I have to say that I think that you are leading people the wrong way, meaning that you say, I have to rip the Band-Aid off for because I'm mean-spirited. I thought you were nothing but nice. Like I thought, well, because again, you're coming into a session where people are already at a fever pitch almost, right? Because we do or do not. And I felt very taken care of. And I to the T, and it must be got people you're working with. I was like, no, I don't want to do a first pass. I don't want to you're like, let's just do it. And it was very comforting because again, I don't mind having beginner's mindset, but there's this guy or person that I don't know. And I have to walk out in the emperor's underwear.
Yeah.
So I think that you were very gentle with it, and it was a great one. I didn't know this, but as I said it, or I was writing down questions or thinking about it for you, I didn't think about that you have on your site, not looking for a white guy. Totally understand, right? So is that a thing? Like if I were like, I would not come to you because I was looking for an African dialect, which is so crazy because there's white people in Africa, right? But what's behind that? That must have been something that you caught on a lot if you put it on your site.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a long history of dialect coaches being exclusively white, generally older. And there's been a long history of what we call prescriptive dialect coaching versus descriptive dialect coaching. So that means this is how these people talk, and I'm going to tell you how they talk, versus this is the sound that they're making here, and this is the way that you make that sound, where you're describing the process and mechanics of the thing versus this is right, this is wrong to somebody. And also, I completely understand when people want to be taught by somebody that looks like them, or like the person that is supposed to have this accent or has this accent in the majority of the world as well. So yeah, I have that on there so that people can hopefully find what resources they need for what they're looking for.
I thought it was very open. I thought it was very welcoming. Like it was so cool to have there. And for me, when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's so awesome, because it's not like, oh, you can only work with me. It's like, no, I have other people. Like, but I just want you to get your work done. Right. That's the way I felt reading it. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. I just thought it was really kind of cool there. So you don't feel like you're appropriating anybody's accent too, right? Or
yeah. Also, if that is a question coming up, I have no recommendation whether you should or should not slate in the accent that you are auditioning in. It's completely different.
I didn't even think about that one.
Casting directors and different projects. What I sometimes say is, if it's two separate files, do whatever you want. If you're doing a slate that's attached and it's at the end, do your regular accent in the slate then, because they've then watched you work. And then they're like, oh my God, they're not from there. Whereas when it's beforehand and attached, then psychologically there is that little bit of like, are they going to mess up? Is this right? When you hear them suddenly switch.
That's a great tip. That's a great tip. What we do, because I help actors book self-tapes and off of self-tapes. And one of the things I always say is always put your slate at the end, just always, even if we're just doing a regular, auditions, because you get to see, like exactly like you said, you get to see your work first. Right. Mm-hmm. See your work first, and then we'll attach it at the end. But I love the way that this could be a suggestion. Right. You're saying it's just a suggestion, if you decide to do it, your personal, dialect instead of maybe an accent. So that's cool. All right. Okay. We're at this part of the podcast where I'm going to just say this line. I'm just going to say this line in my own wonderful podcast, sexy voice, and we're just going to see what happens. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, why is this so long? The line I wrote here is, because I believe in manifestation and always continue to put it out there, is I am booking a show that I love, playing a character I am deeply connected to, and I'm excited to represent the world. I'll save that for you. so I can put it out there again. I'll put it in our chat so that you can see it. But we do definitely not have to do all of this, but I thought it might be kind of fun to maybe
pick out a couple bits. Yeah.
Pick out a couple bits of this thing. That's the whole thing. But we could just look at, again, I am booking a show that I love, playing a character I am deeply connected to, and I'm excited to represent in the world. This is it's one of my vision statements that I have, because I believe that if you don't get out of bed being pulled to a vision, being pulled towards something, you will be repeating your old memories. And that's how your life becomes very predictable, when we have these lives that over and over again, that we are just like, oh, this feels like yesterday. It's because we are not being pulled to this vision of booking a character that I love, that is deeply connected to, that I am deeply connected to. So, and there's more to it, but I just want to start there. So
this is great.
Nobody watch this on YouTube because I am stressing. All right. So if we just use the first
up to
bit
world.
there. Yeah, right. Up to world there. And if I said to you, I came to you and I was like, hey, they said I need to do this in a British accent. Mm-hmm. How would we start this?
Well, as mentioned on this podcast, I would get you to just give it a go one time. Let's see what happens. And yeah, it's just the same. It's going to be great. And for all listeners, don't listen to this part. Just skip 15 seconds and then come back.
I set you up for that, and I did not see it coming. I forgot that I just said to give it a pass through, and I forgot that we were going to do that. And I was like, oh man, I didn't practice this. This is that's I did not practice. Okay, all right. I am booking a show that I love, playing a character I am deeply connected to, and am excited to represent in the world. That's all I got.
We did it. Yeah. Okay. So earlier on, I was saying that we don't necessarily have to worry about every single word. There are about 4-ish words. Mm-hmm. I might to be determined. That are what I would call signature sounds in here. The first one is the 5th word of the sentence.
Is it show or that?
It is show. Uh-huh. So the final vowel in that is going to be an O sound. So can you do an for me, like the?
Like the.
Yeah, just the part of the. Can you do an sound for me? Like, yep. Now can you glide from one to the other? Great. And now can you round your lips as you do it? Oh. There we go. Show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay.
So can you say it in your own accent one time, that word?
Show.
And then we're going to do it this time with an O instead.
Show.
Beautiful. Done. One nailed.
Wow. Okay. All right, you all see.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Next word is going to be after playing very next word.
Character.
So this is one of these places where these R's come into play. We are still going to say the first R in this word of the t. We're going to drop the last one, so it becomes just t instead of ter. And then we're actually going to do a little magicianing here and put a syllable break. What? Before that first R. So instead of care, make it after the R, we're going to do character. That's it. Yeah. See, he's a professional, guys. He's a professional.
Character.
Keeping that as an A at the start and not making it an R, but like cat.
Oh, like cat. So
yeah.
Character.
Yes.
So there's two more words that are big.
Two more. Okay. Exactly. Mm-hmm. The feeling that you get to represent this is
excited.
Yeah, very good. So we have two options depending on what style of accent we're going for. We can either go for a regular T in excited with a T, or we can get rid of the T completely and put in a little break. And there's a glottal stop of excited.
I like that one.
Okay, so instead of excited with a in the middle, we're going to do excited.
Excited.
Yeah, just keep your I pretty regular. Excited. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. And then we want to just speed it up a tiny bit.
Excited.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and we can make it a clean break. Excited.
Oh, so a clean break. Tell me what that means. Like full stop or be done.
It's technically a glottal stop. So what's happening is that you stop the sound between the two syllables. So rather than excited, where it's smooth, we go excited.
Excited.
Yeah, exactly. It's staccato. If you like musical terminology. Excited.
Yes, excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. And the last word is the last word in this.
World.
Good. Yeah. So we're trying to get rid of that ishness in this word. And in order to do that, if you take two fingers, put them between your teeth, take them out, keep the same space, and do world. Good.
I'm moving the tongue, so I shouldn't, right?
So we don't want the back to go up, because if the back goes up, then it goes and so we want it to stay down. World.
Oh, world. It's not coming out right. We're gonna get this, y'all. I'm gonna get this.
Let's take out the L for now and just do word.
Word.
Very good.
World.
Yeah.
That one's the hardest. Why is that one the hardest, right?
Yeah, it's that R to L combo.
All right, I'm gonna try this. So it's all together. I am booking a show.
Oh, yeah. Show.
I am booking a show.
Making sure you start at that space, not at an O space. So lips-wise, we want to start this way, not that way.
Show.
That's better. Yeah, there we go.
I'm booking a show that I love playing a character. A character.
How do you say the animal?
Character.
There we go.
Character. I am deeply connected to and excited.
Do that one. Yeah.
To represent the world. That one we will have to.
Yeah, we'll revisit world.
We'll have to come back to that one. You know what, Jack? What I really want to say is that above everything else, that anybody that is watching this on YouTube or listening to this on your run, you were doing this with us. I hope you did it with us as you heard this sentence, that you seem to come alive when you start working with actors on this, right? Like your whole energy got excited.
It did. Yes, excited.
You seem to be very in love with this and wouldn't let me get by on it. So there's a great quality there of I'm going to help, but I'm also going to hold you to the fire because I believe in you. And I got to say that more than anything is exciting.
Yay.
How did I do on that one? How did I do it?
Great.
I can't thank you enough for just popping on here and talking about this. I know this might not be as exciting to everybody, but to me, it's so much fun. Right? Once I can get past my fears, we started having fun. I forgot we were doing a podcast. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm saying all these words. I hope I'm not offending anybody. I thank you for that. I don't want to give all of your secrets away for free because I think what you do is fantastic. And how can people get a hold of you? I know you're at Coach Jack Wallace on Instagram, right? Did I say that right?
Close. I am at Accent Coach Jack on all platforms. And you can also go to my website, accentcoachjack.com.
Thank you for continuing to do what you do for us actors. And, again, my total stamp of approval because it's so fun. So thank you for coming on, buddy. I appreciate you. Hey, Mariann, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, DaJuan?
I am so good, and I'm so excited to have you here for so many reasons.
Okay, name two.
I can name more than two. We'll get into this, but I just think that your career longevity is amazing, right? Just because we don't get to talk to people who have been in it and acting for so long, and in a good way. And I it for me, where I come from in my world, and I hope this isn't offensive, but maybe it is, you let me know, but I respect my elders. You know what I mean? And they have,
it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I know how we are. Everybody is with age and everything, but I respect my elders. And I think, the people who have come before me have so much, knowledge and information and wisdom to pass on. And so definitely number one, I'm excited to share you with the Think Bigger tribe, but also for myself, this is just a podcast that I'm just super, super excited about jumping into. So there's one big one.
Okay. I'll take that. We can stop there. I'll tell you what, I'm excited.
Ooh.
Okay. Whenever I see, because I love actors and I love certain performances, and when I see a performance that I'm not familiar with, I immediately go to Google and IMDb. Who is that person? Who was that? And I first became aware of you on an episode of Grey's Anatomy. And you were your wife was dying, and you had this moment that was so real and so authentic that I went, who is he? Great. Oh, I love this. So that was it. So and I've been stalking you ever since.
You're not doing really great at the stalking, because I think stalkers are not supposed to tell you they're out there. You've been like, hi, I'm here.
Oh, okay. But you don't know when I'm not there, because hide it in plain sight. You put it out there and
Well, you're doing, then you know what, then you're doing a great job.
Okay.
I have to say that, thank you for that. I receive with that Grey's Anatomy. That was one of those career highlights for me, because I just got to be present and really fall in love with what I was doing, and not acting, but just this moment, everything that was happening. And, I think that's what we kind of dream about in acting school, right? When you're in acting, just to be able to have moments like that where you get to show the range of, maybe there's a little bit of comedy, maybe there's a little bit of drama, maybe your tears. It's not all about crying, but it was a beautiful, beautiful run there. And Debbie Allen. I'll just say, and Debbie Allen.
Okay. So Debbie directed that episode? Was that
Debbie,
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Debbie directed that episode.
Okay.
And I've said this many times on this podcast, but I went up to her before we started and I was like, you're Debbie Allen. And I was like, I just need to do that. I'm good. Now that we got it out of the way, she said, oh boy, get out of here. It was so funny, but we got it out. I got it out, and then we got to work, because you grow up with these things, these people. So, speaking of people who we like grew up watching, you're definitely one of those people. You've worked with some people that are also, mega awesome like you, Red Foxx and Della Reese and yes, Della Reese. Like, I grew up, like you guys, like, I don't know, just and who was Jack A? You know what I mean? Jack A.
Jack A. Oh God, Jack A. and I go way back. Oh Lord. Oh, we go back to our soap opera days when she was on Another World and I was on Edge of Night because they were both Procter & Gamble shows. Yeah.
Yes. So how was it? How is it working with some of the greats? I know some of our listeners might be like, who's Red Foxx or all those people, but I know, but like Red Foxx has been he's been not with us for a very long time, and I don't think I see any of Sanford and Son in reruns anymore. Do you?
I don't. Probably I think so. I think they're probably somewhere out in the universe, because I know there's stuff that I've done that comes on like, oh my God, it's like every other day, because I have Xfinity. And you can set it to record. You can put a name in, and I put my name in. So every time something comes up, I go like, I got money coming. Yeah. It might be a couple bucks, but anyway. But one of the Legends, I think it's Legends is a platform or a cable or network something. And they recently did a marathon of the royal family, all the episodes. With that we did, and of course Naya Rivera was on that show too. She played my daughter. She was 4 at the time. So
and Lorenz Tate.
And Lorenz Tate. Another Chicagoan. Because you're from Chicago, right?
I am from Chicago. I'm saying this. I don't know when this podcast is going to make it out there. So anybody listening to this, you might have already missed this, but I'm coming to Chicago next month and I'm doing a little workshop there. So in person, so gonna pop up there. I guess one of my biggest questions is, I really want to talk about visioning, and I see behind you the Maya Angelou books, and you pop into the tribe with some wonderful energy all the time. I want to know about the staying power that you have in this industry. Like we talked about longevity. I work with actors sometimes, and there's no offense to any of these actors if you're out there listening to me, but if they've been in this business for a couple of years, they're like, it's not working, right? And and
you know why that is?
Why is
that? Because they're telling themselves that it's not working.
Yes. or what I find, to be completely honest, also is, what is your definition of working, right? What story are you making up in your head about, like, am I going to hop from show to show to show to show? Is that what it is? Or because I don't know that even the A-list actors are all doing it that way. So I guess I just want to ask you, what's your secret to your staying power?
The secret to my staying power is really more of a life lesson than a career lesson.
I'm here for it.
And you are very much into this because it's a think bigger tribe. Think. And first of all, I have a life. I'm a person. So I am not, I can understand when I was younger, there was a desperation of, I've got to make this happen. I've got to make this happen. I've got to make this happen. To the point that I don't think I even really was fully present at any of my success because it was always a stepping stone to the next thing. And of course, when you get to be my age, which is 74, you don't want to think too far ahead, so I stay in the present moment and I soak up as much joy in the present moment all the time, which means I have a daily practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
A daily practice of gratitude. I'm grateful for everything. I had I'm drinking like a raspberry lemon kombucha. I just discovered that. And it's like, I'm so happy. It's like, I love that flavor. I had never tried it before. I'm grateful that I'm having this conversation with you. I look for things to be grateful for. When you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on what you don't have. Della, you brought up Della Reese. Della used to say, when you think about all the things that you want, that you don't have. Stop and think about the things that you don't want, that you don't have either, and be grateful.
Mm, mm. Look at that. I'm getting chills, everybody, because I never imagined that, I think pretty big, but I never imagined after, Della passed that I would have her show up in this space like
Yeah.
she just did, and for me, I'm just really grateful. Like, wow, like just to have a little tidbit of Della Reese through you was just like a moment for me. I was like,
oh, I'm getting chills now myself. I mean, because I happened to be in LA when she was near the end, and I was up at her house. She was not communicating at this point. She was just lying in bed. And so I was able to stroke her forehead and, and talk to her and say, I just called her mom. Hey, Ma, talk to her. And so we knew the time was near because I got the phone call, the time is near. So come and say your goodbyes. And I said to her, well, I know where you're going. You got the hookup. So work on that series for me because I want another one. I swear to you, telepathically, she communicated to me that you know how to do this stuff. Get it your own damn self. That's how she talked. She was very irreverent. I mean, because I could see like a little flicker of her eyes, like she heard me, and it's like, girl, you know how to do this stuff. You do it. You don't need me to intervene for you. And that's the thing. We have a lot more power.
Yes.
Than we give ourselves credit for. And if we're always looking for the power outside of ourselves, we're giving our power away.
Come on.
So
I say that. Everybody's waiting for a stimulus check, and I'm like, you are the stimulus. You know what I mean? Like, make that stuff happen for you. I don't want to pass by something you said that was pretty profound, was that you were not present for so many of your successes. Mm-hmm. And, I call that inside my business, like inside Think Bigger, the moving the dangling carrot. Right? Because what happens is you think of a cart and we put the dangling carrot out there and we go towards that success and we get there, we hit that milestone, but then we look up and we've moved it again instead of just sitting in it and eating the carrot, right? It was like eating the carrot, let's type another one and go, but no, we keep moving the carrot. And I just wonder if it's a little bit of the industry that we're in that perpetuates that move. Or was it just you? And what I mean by that is we can't sit and rest in our successes because it's like, I'm on this show, I'm doing this. It's like, what's next? We hear it in our interviews. What are you doing next? Mariann, what's going on next for you? Instead of like, can I just be happy here? You know what I mean? Can I just do this? Or like, I just came off a show for 7 years. That's what everybody asked me. What are you doing next? What do you have lined up next? And I was like, I'm actually just trying to figure out if I like myself anymore. Or do I want to be an actor anymore, or whatever that is, because we get to become whatever we want. So I guess I just wonder, what do you think drove that for you to not show up fully into your own successes?
Oh, well, I came from a kind of a childhood where things were expected of me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if I had a success, well, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, that you're expected to be successful. So I think a lot of that was sort of parental programming, early childhood stuff. And I went to therapy for that. And I think I got that cleared up. I trained as a hypnotherapist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. Well, let me tell you a little bit about that. Because I had a great career for 30 years, mostly in television. And when I got to my early 50s, the casting directors just stopped calling. I mean, this is like, boom, it's like I had fallen off the planet. And I had a conversation with my agent at the time, and I was told that a lot of the roles that I played were the appendage to the man, the girlfriend, the wife, the pretty girl. Mm-hmm. And what do you do with the pretty girl when she gets old? Mm-hmm. So my agent suggested that I gain 50 pounds so that I could do more character work.
Wow.
And I thought, that was the craziest shit I had ever heard. But no, I mean, genetically, I already had high blood pressure. You want me to get diabetes and high cholesterol? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because that doesn't fit me. No, I'm not gonna, that's ridiculous. And then I think actors have a natural curiosity about human behavior and motivation. And so I trained to become a hypnotherapist because I felt at the time that my career as an actor, it was like an unrequited love. I loved it, but it wasn't loving me back. So what do you do when you're yearning for somebody that's not loving you back? Well, then screw you, then I'll go do somebody else, Yeah. So what else do you like to do, Mariann? So I trained as a hypnotherapist, and most of my clients came from that area, from Tarzana, Encino, very well-to-do area. And the women that I was seeing were mostly in their late 40s, early 50s, going through midlife, and they had everything. They had money, they had status, but they were depressed. And I quickly realized that we as a culture, both men and women, we've been hypnotized into believing that women lose value and social and sexual currency as we get older. And these women were buying into it. And so I am giving them the positive suggestions under hypnosis. And the thing about actors is that we are highly suggestible. So the suggestions I gave them took root in my own subconscious mind, which made me reclaim my career. And I said, well, I can't tell them to do something that I am unwilling to do. And I thought, well, what can I do? And I thought, I can hire myself. My very first solo show was called Snap Out of It. You've only been hypnotized into believing you're over the hell. And I did it at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute at the auditorium. And the feedback that I got from the women who were saying to me, you told my story, that they saw a representation of themselves that they weren't seeing in film and television. And for anyone who is not familiar with Simon Sinek, Simon Sinek, big thing is find your why. Why do you do what it is that you do? I know why I do what it is that I do. I want to touch people. I want to change their lives in a certain way. I want to affect them. I want to be part of this story that's going to be meaningful, which is why I stopped acting, because I didn't become an actor to be judge number 9, to just be a perfunctory, I'm there. And, I want to be an integral part of the story. I want the message of what I have to say as a person to be included in the story, because we as actors, when we know our why, there's a through line in everything we do, whether it's comedy, whether it's drama. And when I grew up, my parents grew up in the Jim Crow South, and they were very political. Interestingly, my father was a Republican, my mother was a Democrat. We used to have a lot of interesting conversations over the dinner table.
I bet.
But I was always extremely conscious of being Black and how I wanted to tell stories about Black people. And so there were things that I would not do. There were things that when I got the character of Dee Dee Bannister on Edge of Night, and this was in 1981 when I came on that show. There were not a lot of Black people on soap operas. I knew that I was there. If I got to be the one that went through the door, that I was going to represent for all of us. And I remember one day, I used to go to church on Sundays, either at Lincoln Center or Alice Tully Hall. They had unity and religious science. So I would go one of the two every Sunday. And there was a coffee shop across the street. And afterwards, I would go and have breakfast. One Sunday I walked in and I see a Black woman at the back. And, mostly white people there. I don't recall there being any other Black people, as a matter of fact, but except she and myself. And so we kind of nodded, and she nodded, as we do, we nod in recognition. So I was facing the door, so that when she was leaving, she came to the door, she had to turn around to face me. She turned around, she cupped my chin in her hand, and she said, "Oh, baby, it's so good to see you on that show." Mm-hmm. That meant everything to me. Mm-hmm. That meant everything to me. Mm-hmm. So now that I am 74, it's like I want to represent for older women
Mm.
in a way that I am not seeing us reflected in film and television.
Yeah.
So again, I have a solo show. I do stand-up comedy. I have a campaign that I'm starting on Instagram, Say Your Age. And my handle on Instagram is Mariann Aalda _ aging shamelessly.
Mm-hmm.
I look at now everything that I do, it's kind of like my ministry. You know, that is how I minister to the world. My thing is talent is what God gives to you. What you do with it is your gift to God. And when I leave here, I want to be all used up. I'm going to use everything you gave me, Jesus, everything. I'm going to just use all of it. So I have a very strong mind. So, you know, whether they're ups or downs or, you know, peaks or valleys in my career, I don't give it that much thought because that ain't about me. I do what I do, you know, within my power.
So I mean, brilliant, right? I love, there's so many nuggets there. Just so many nuggets. I mean, you know,
I'm old. I know shit, DaJuan.
I know. You're going so fast. And I'm like, but that nugget, like, so if you go back and you're listening to all these things, it's so great. But, you know, one of the things you said was, I'm going to reclaim my career, right? Reclaim my career. So you said, what did I do? I'm going to hire myself.
Right.
That is great. But then this last one you just dropped was, you're like, the peaks and the valleys ain't got nothing to do with me. And it's so interesting because we ride through these peaks and valleys and we're just like, it is so intense down here and it's so up and it's so intense, you know, but, and they make you want to maybe leave the business because of the peaks and valleys, but you're saying you ain't got nothing to do with that. I have so many other things going on. You know, I look back on hearing your story about being a hypnotherapist, kind of, as I say it right?
Yes.
Back in a time when the message we were getting from the industry was only be one thing, only be an actor, you know, don't be a director, don't be a writer. Like you're only hearing it back then, only be one thing. Like you were being a little bit of a rebel. Like you were just like, I know, right?
And
yes, I know. And I guess I just wonder because you know what, I bring that up because I took that to heart when I first got into the industry. Was even though I wanted to direct, even though I wanted to do other things, I was like, well, Tyler Perry said only do one thing, or if you can think about doing anything else, they would say do that instead of acting. And I was like, well, I guess I got to be, you know, on my path with acting. But I think, like you said, the universe, God, whatever you associate with, whispers. You can hear whispers to do other things.
absolutely.
I love that you diversified. I think that we also get to be other things as well, right? And not just be those one things. I remember my journey to becoming a coach, right? To being in this space. I've said this before on this podcast, but after my second season in Bosch, I was working so hard to get the series. You know, everybody was like, get on a series. That's what you want to do. And I remember getting on that series and not feeling as fulfilled as I thought I was going to feel. And I remember just saying, what else would you have me do? Use me. I remember I had a meditation from Oprah and it was just like, use me, God. It's just like, use me. What else? What do you want me? And it just came to me. You know, it was like, you love working with people. You love acting. Like you love coaching. Why don't you put all that together? And it came and it's been wonderful since then. But what if I hadn't answered that call? You know, what if I was like, no, that's not what I was supposed to be doing. You want me to play? You know what I mean? Like, I believe that I show up and I've been helping so many people, hopefully on their path. That's my hope. And that's what I think so far. So listen to
you know
yourself.
what? You know something? If you had not answered that call, somebody else would have answered it. The work would have gotten done. You wouldn't have been the one to do it, but somebody was going to answer that call. I believe that the universe is highly efficient. And it's like, if you have a need of something and I have a need of something, the universe will find a way to bring us together.
Yeah.
It does that. So that right now, I know that there is someone in need of telling a story that I'm the perfect person for them to help them. As a matter of fact, I did a podcast a couple of months ago, and I want to say it's the Good News podcast, and it's about good news and world gone good, I think it is. That's one thing. I go on somebody else's podcast and I plug another one. But anyway, there's a moral to the story. Okay, it's all the same. We're all in this together. So the gentleman DM'd me and said that in his Instagram, that I just came up as, maybe you should be one of these people you might want to know. Follow the intuition, check me out, emailed me, invited me to be on his show. We did the show, had a lot of fun doing the show. It was a half-hour show. We talked for another half hour afterwards. As we're talking, he says to me, I'm a playwright as well. And I've had a couple of plays produced, and I've got one right now that we're raising the money for. And, I think there might be a part in here for you. Would you mind taking a look at it? And I did, and it's wonderful. So, you want to see what I'm saying? It's like the universe will figure out ways to orchestrate things so that if I would tell anyone who's listening to this, don't try to figure it all out. Just do the work in front of you. Do the work in front of you, and you will attract what you have need of. Don't go chasing after it. Just do the work in front of you.
Yeah, the how shows up on a need-to-know basis.
Yes.
Right? It does, right? We want to know all 25 steps, but if we told you that at step 13 that it's going to be a little hard or it might be a little challenging, you might not do it, right? And so we got to get through that. And remember, just the how shows up on a need-to-know basis. I just have one more question for you.
Okay.
And it is, I love how you are seeing yourself. I love how you are pulling yourself into your new vision. That's so in alignment with Success Leaves Clues and what we do over here at Think Bigger. What is your future vision of yourself and your career that you're pulling yourself to next?
Oh, I know exactly what it is because I have formulated in my mind. I love television. I have done hour dramas, those 18-hour dramas. The last thing I did was The Blacklist. Energetically, that does not work for me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be sitting in a trailer. It just energetic. I know me. And this is the thing too. Know who you are. Know yourself. You really have to know what works for you. Sometimes we try to shoehorn ourselves into things because we think that's what we should be doing. Because like if we have to struggle for it, it's more meaningful. No. You have these natural gifts and your abilities. Go with what you got and work that. So I want to do a sitcom. I want to be working with other actors. I decided I don't want to do my solo show anymore unless I maybe might do a stand-up show. But I became an actor to work with other actors. I love being in the sandbox and playing with other actors and the give and the take. And I love being on a show. I'm a crew chick. It's like I learned the names of everybody in the crew and the kids. And, it's like, how was the bar mitzvah? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I love that familial sense of, being a part of a community. And I want all of us to be together. And because I'm sure you have worked on sets where there was drama. I don't want any drama. I want everybody to be there to be able to do their best work and have a really good time and put out a great product that people love.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do next because I think you are just the bee's knees. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Well, thank you for asking me. I've been, like I said, I've been stalking you. So
it
this
worked.
wasn't it worked.
It worked. Jack Wallace, so amazing. Confidence. Books. I've said this many times before on this podcast, confidence books. And so that's really what stuck out for me. You can probably BS your way through an audition that requires an accent, or you can start working on them beforehand and confidently call these roles into your lived experience. I mean, there's something to be said about the amazing actors, American, British, Australian, any actor really that chooses to learn a new dialect for a role, a new accent for a role, and knocks it out of the park. I mean, because whatever you perceive, you can achieve. What if you had that thought about accents? What if you thought that way about them? I mean, just say a British accent. You started working on it, told your team about it, that you were working on it. You called it into your existence. You started dreaming about it, visioning about it. You really started to live this experience of, I want to work in a different place. I want to work with accents. And you watched it move into form. Like Waco, when I talked about, or a fantasy show like His Dark Materials on HBO, or what if it was a sequel to the Harry Potters? What if you knew once you started doing this, putting this stuff into motion, those roles would materialize? Would you do it? Would you do it? What if I told you have to start doing the accent first, and then those things will come? Check it out. I don't know. I'm just telling you, we truly do have everything we need inside, and we know it. We know it, and it truly is about choosing to do something about it. Oh, man, I can feel it moving into law for you, the law of transportation energy. And Mariann, wow, reclaiming her career at 70. Wow. When I tell you we could learn a lot from sitting down with our elders in this industry, baby. You know, what I took away from our conversation is her absolute resolve that this is the career path for her. Sure, she got a little bit upset. Sure, she was like mad about it and went away for a little bit. But don't we do that with everything? We think we're never going to fall out of a love with this career, even for a little bit. But she understood the ups and the downs. And through being a series regular and working with some of the biggest names in this town, in this industry, and then going off and doing some smaller roles, having reps that she wanted to leave. It was just like I was up and down in that whole story. This is really the plight of an actor. All of it. We really have to be okay with all these ups and downs. You really can be on top of the world and then, have the coveted series regular and work with all the stars. And then the next week you'd be looking for a job. The industry might not even recognize you. And then you go back, you're right back on top. I love that she's 74 and on Clubhouse, 74 and reinventing herself, 74 and scrubbing all of her actor successes off of her website and showing them what she really wants to show them. So much to learn from someone who's been there, done that, and is willing to tell us about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you, Mariann. Thank you. What'd you take away? What did you take away? I want to know. Let's chat about it. Drop me a DM on Insta or maybe slide up in my inbox on Facebook. I'm really cool, you guys. I don't know why I just get terms mixed up. I think you're supposed to slide in the inbox or the DM. You know what I meant. Come on. Oh, man. Thank you so much. You know what I'm going to ask. Share this podcast with one other person. Just one other person. Just tell them, have you heard the Think Bigger Actors podcast? You know what? You should check out the Think Bigger Actors podcast. See, I've given you prompts on what to say. I will see you in a couple of weeks for our next episode. And let me tell you, it's good. It's a casting director. I don't usually have too many casting directors on because I want you to know that you are great. But this one I had to have on. See you soon.